What if love was never meant to be found in cities, cafes, or ordinary streets, but at the edge of the sky, beneath the frozen crown of the Matterhorn? What if two strangers arrived with broken histories, hidden scars, and silent hopes, only to discover that destiny had been waiting for them among the snow and clouds? This is not just a love story. This is a question carved into the mountains. And the answer begins now. The first time Xiao Zhan saw Zhao Lucy, the wind was screaming across the Alps like a warning. Snow drifted through the air in slow, elegant spirals, and the sun was sinking behind the jagged teeth of the Matterhorn, turning the world gold and crimson. He had come to Switzerland to escape the noise of his past, the pressure of the life he had lived too long for someone so young. She had come because her heart could not stay where it was anymore. Neither of them knew the other's story. Yet when their eyes met on that frozen platform above Zermatt, the world shifted. Zhao Lucy was standing alone, clutching a wool scarf around her neck, her breath forming soft clouds as she stared at the mountain as if searching for an answer it might reveal. Xiao Zhan noticed how her eyes reflected the peaks, bright and trembling with something between hope and fear. He hesitated before speaking, feeling foolish for the sudden nervousness in his chest. "First time here?" he asked. She turned surprised, then smiled. Not the kind of smile meant for strangers, but one that arrived without permission. "Yes," she said. "And it already feels like the last place I should have come to." That sentence stayed with him. They walked together toward the trail as the sky darkened. Their steps crunched through the snow in the same rhythm, and neither of them asked where the other came from. They talked about small things, the cold, the mountain, the silence, yet every word felt heavy with things they were not saying. The Matterhorn loomed above them, enormous and eternal, as if it were listening. Days passed. They kept meeting without planning to. In the morning at the cafe with fogged windows. At the cable car station where bells rang like distant promises. On the narrow paths where the world narrowed to sky, stone, and breath. With each meeting, something in them softened. Xiao Zhan spoke of how his life had become a stage where he could no longer hear his own thoughts. Zhao Lucy spoke of a love she had once believed in, and how it had collapsed without warning, leaving her afraid of tomorrow. One night, under a sky scattered with stars so close it felt as if they were falling, they stood at the edge of the mountain ridge. The cold was brutal, yet neither of them moved away. "Do you believe some people meet because the world cannot hold their stories apart?" she asked. Xiao Zhan looked at her face, pale under moonlight, and felt something inside him break open. "I think some hearts are guided here so they can finally be honest." Snow began to fall, soft and quiet, wrapping the moment in silence. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. She did not pull away. Their love did not arrive gently. It rose like a storm. They shared mornings tangled in blankets with sunlight cutting across their faces, afternoons walking through villages where bells rang in their ears, and evenings by the fireplace as shadows danced across the walls. Every laugh was fragile. Every kiss carried the fear of tomorrow. The mountain outside their window seemed to watch them, unmoving and wise, as if it already knew how the story would end. Zhao Lucy began to fall in love first. She saw it in the way she waited for him to return from the village, in how her chest tightened when his voice softened. Xiao Zhan fought it longer. He had spent years building walls he no longer remembered how to tear down. But one night, when a storm swallowed the mountain and thunder shook the sky, he confessed. "I am terrified," he said, his forehead pressed to hers. "Because loving you feels like standing at the edge of something I can't survive." She whispered. "Then fall with me." They did. They planned nothing, yet dreamed of everything. A future that might never exist. A home that had no shape yet felt real. The Matterhorn stood above them through it all, massive and silent, as if marking every promise in stone. But love born on mountains is never untouched by storms. A message arrived for Xiao Zhan. The life he had abandoned was calling him back. Contracts, obligations, a world he could not simply erase. The moment he read the words, something inside him collapsed. He waited hours before telling her, watching her laugh in the snow, knowing he was about to shatter that sound forever. When he finally spoke, her face lost its color. "So this was temporary?" she asked quietly. "No," he said, his voice breaking. "This was everything." They argued that night. Not with anger but with fear. The kind that leaves no one victorious. The storm outside returned louder than before, as if the mountain itself was grieving. The next morning Zhao Lucy was gone. She left no note, only the scarf he had admired the first day they met. Xiao Zhan searched the village, the trails, the cable station, his breath burning his lungs. By dusk he found her at the highest ridge overlooking the Matterhorn, where the wind howled like a warning. She stood at the edge of the world. "I thought if I stayed," she said without turning, "I would lose myself." He walked to her slowly. "And I thought if I left I would lose you." Silence fell between them, deeper than the snow. The sun began to sink behind the peaks, painting the sky with fire. The mountain stood between them and the world. Zhao Lucy finally turned. Tears ran freely down her face. "I don't want a love that lives only in a memory." Xiao Zhan took her hands. "Then don't let it." They kissed with the weight of every fear, every hope, every unknown tomorrow. The mountain wind carried their breath into the endless sky. In that moment, neither of them knew what choice would come, only that whatever they decided, the Matterhorn would remember their names long after they were gone. And somewhere between snow and sky, love had already won. The story does not end here. Because some loves are not written in chapters. They are written in mountains. The wind that night did not sleep. It clawed at the windows of the small mountain lodge, screaming through the valleys like a wounded animal, as if the Matterhorn itself were furious that two fragile hearts dared to challenge fate beneath its shadow. Inside, the fire burned low. Shadows trembled on the wooden walls. And between them, silence grew heavier than any storm. Xiao Zhan sat at the edge of the bed, his back to Zhao Lucy, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Every thought in his mind was a battlefield. The life calling him back, the woman behind him, the mountain that had given him both his escape and his undoing. "Say something," she whispered. He turned. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair falling loosely around her face, her scarf folded beside her like a memory that refused to disappear. "If I speak," he said, his voice unsteady, "I'm afraid I won't survive the truth." She stood and crossed the room in 3 steps. "Then don't survive it alone." He looked at her, truly looked, and the fear inside him finally collapsed. "I leave in 3 days." The words shattered the room. Zhao Lucy staggered back as if struck. The fire cracked loudly, breaking the silence that followed, but it was too late. Something inside her broke. 3 days, she repeated. "So that's all the time our forever gets?" He reached for her, but she stepped away. "You promised," she said. "You said this was everything." "It is," he said desperately. "That's why this is killing me." Outside, snow slammed against the glass. The mountain roared. That night they did not sleep. They talked until their voices were gone. About childhood dreams. About the mistakes they carried like ghosts. About the lives they were afraid to return to. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they laughed in disbelief. Sometimes they just held each other while the world outside tried to tear itself apart. Morning arrived in pale blue silence. The first of the 3 days. They climbed the lower ridge together. Their breaths forming clouds, their fingers frozen but intertwined. The mountain glittered in sunlight, beautiful and cruel. Zhao Lucy laughed suddenly, the sound breaking open the cold. "Why does it feel like the mountain is mocking us?" she said. Xiao Zhan smiled sadly. "Maybe it's reminding us that nothing lasts forever." She stopped walking. "Then why does love feel like it should?" He had no answer. That evening Zhao Lucy disappeared again. This time, he found her at the chapel on the edge of the village, sitting alone in the last pew. Candles flickered around her like trembling stars. "I prayed," she said when he approached. "I don't even believe in miracles. But I prayed anyway." "What did you ask for?" Her voice cracked. "For time to stop." The second night was the worst. They lay in bed, backs to each other, both awake, listening to the storm return. Every second was loud. Every breath was a countdown. On the third morning, the sky was cruelly clear. The mountain looked peaceful. Xiao Zhan's phone vibrated in his pocket. The message was short. His driver was waiting. The road would close soon because of the weather. This was the moment. Zhao Lucy stood by the window, watching the mountain. "If you leave," she said, not turning, "this place will never forgive you." He stepped behind her. "Will you?" She closed her eyes. Tears fell onto the glass. I don't know. They walked together to the edge of the village where the road disappeared into the snow. The car waited. The engine was already running. No one spoke. Xiaozhan took her face in his hands. I love you. Her lips trembled. That's what makes this unbearable. He kissed her once, slow, desperate, final. Then he turned away. As the car began to move, Zhao Lucy did not chase it. She simply sank into the snow, pressing her hands against her chest as if trying to hold her heart in place while it shattered. The mountain remained silent. Hours later, as the road curved around the ridge, Xiaozhan looked back. The Matterhorn was disappearing behind clouds. And with it, the only place he had ever truly lived. But fate was not finished with them yet. The storm returned without warning. The wind howled. Snow swallowed the road. The car skidded violently, spinning, the world becoming white and soundless. Xiaozhan's head struck the window. Darkness came. And somewhere on the mountain, Zhao Lucy felt it. A pain so sharp she gasped and fell to her knees, as if the earth itself had reached into her chest and torn something away. She did not know why. She only knew she had to run. Zhao Lucy ran. She did not know where the strength came from. Only that her chest was burning and her legs were moving through the snow before her mind could catch up. The wind tore at her coat, her breath cut her lungs, yet something deeper than fear was pulling her forward. The mountain path blurred beneath her boots as she climbed higher, toward the ridge where the road twisted through the storm. The villagers' shouts vanished behind her. The world narrowed to white and wind and the echo of her own heart screaming his name. Xiaozhan! Xiaozhan! Snow swallowed the road. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, thin and frightened. And there, half hidden by the storm, the car lay broken against the rocks, the door hanging open like a wounded wing. Her knees gave way. She crawled to the vehicle, hands numb, tears freezing on her cheeks. Inside, Xiaozhan lay unconscious, blood streaked across his temple, his chest rising faintly. He was alive. She pressed her forehead to his, sobbing. I'm here, she whispered. You're not leaving me. Not like this. Not now. Rescuers arrived through the storm, their voices sharp with urgency, but Zhao Lucy did not let go of his hand even as they lifted him onto the stretcher. The mountain roared around them, furious and merciless, yet she followed every step until the ambulance doors closed. Hours later, in the small hospital beneath the shadow of the Matterhorn, Zhao Lucy sat beside his bed, holding his hand in the pale glow of the monitor. Machines whispered. Snow drifted against the window. The world felt fragile and unfinished. When his eyes finally opened, confusion crossed his face. Then fear. Then something like relief. Did I leave? He murmured. She shook her head, tears falling. No. You stayed. He squeezed her hand weakly. Then I choose you. Whatever it costs. I choose you. The mountain outside stood silent, as if listening. Weeks passed. Xiaozhan's injuries healed slowly. The life waiting for him in another world sent messages, demands, ultimatums. One by one he ignored them. The noise of his past lost its power here, beneath the vast, patient sky. On a quiet morning, they climbed together to the ridge where they had first spoken of impossible things. The sun spilled gold across the Matterhorn, the wind soft and gentle at last. Zhao Lucy leaned into him. Do you think the mountain knows we survived? Xiaozhan smiled. I think it knew before we did. He took her hand, steady and sure. Let's stay. She did not hesitate. Yes. Below them the world waited. Above them the mountain remained eternal and unmovable, bearing witness to a love that had been broken, tested, and reborn among snow and storms. And there beneath the crown of the Matterhorn they chose a future, not because it was easy but because it was theirs. Somewhere the wind finally fell silent.